Have you ever looked at a modern website and noticed alternating cards, beautiful gallery layouts, animated sliders, or striped tables, just like this, and wondered how they are created? Well, in this video, you're going to learn one of the most powerful CSS selectors used in professional front-end development, nth-child. Let's first understand the core idea behind nth-child in the simplest way possible. The nth-child pseudoclass allows CSS to select an element based on its position inside a parent container. That means CSS can literally count elements automatically. Let me show you what I mean. Now, imagine CSS looking at this list like a row of numbered seats. CSS starts counting the list items from top to bottom. First child, second child, third child, fourth child. And because we selected nth-child too, CSS targets the second list item. So the word about becomes red. And honestly, this is what makes nth-child so powerful. So before we continue, I have posted all the code for this project on my website and resources on the description below. In your VS Code, make sure you have such a file structure, mainly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, let's talk about the HTML structure behind this modern image slider and understand how everything is connected together to create a fully interactive front-end experience. One thing professional developers always understand is that before animations, transitions, and JavaScript logic, every project starts with a strong HTML structure. To avoid typing the start structure manually, like what I'm doing, just press Shift 1 and Enter keys for full HTML startup. We're going to link our CSS file using the link element. I'm also going to link and import online font library. Paste the link here, and let's continue. Inside the body, the entire project is wrapped inside a main container. Think of this container as the stage that holds the whole slider system together. Inside that container, we have another section called slide. And this acts as the track that stores all the image cards. Every individual slide is represented using a div with the class item. These items are the actual slides users see moving across the screen. Instead of using regular image tags, each slide uses a background image directly inside the element. This approach gives much more flexibility for full screen layouts because CSS can easily control image scaling, positioning, cropping, and responsiveness. Each slide also contains a content section, and inside that content we have the slide title, the description text, and a call to action button. This consistent structure is very important because it allows the slider to dynamically rearrange slides while maintaining the same design and layout. Now, here's where the architecture becomes really smart. Earlier, we learned how the CSS uses nth-child selectors to style slides differently depending on their position. The HTML structure is specifically designed for that system. JavaScript continuously changes the order of these slide items inside the slide container, and once their positions change, CSS automatically updates the layout. The first child becomes one layout style, the second child becomes the active full screen slide, and the next children become preview cards positioned beside it. This creates the illusion of a complex animated carousel. Even though the JavaScript itself is only rearranging elements inside the DOM. Great, We're done with the first two images of the carousel, as you can see here in our Preview tab. What you need to do to avoid time wastage is to copy and paste the code structure for the other remaining three images. But in case you're practicing, just take your time and type line by line. At the bottom of the slider, we have the navigation controls. These include the previous and next buttons. Each containing font awesome arrow icons. These buttons are connected to JavaScript click events that move the slides forward and backward. And finally, the JavaScript file is imported at the bottom of the page, so all the interactive functionality loads after the HTML structure has been created. Now, before we jump into the advanced parts, let's start from the very top of our CSS. The first thing we see is the universal selector. The asterisk selects every element on the page. This is called the CSS reset. Browsers automatically add default spacing, margins, paddings, list bullets, and text decorations. But professional developers usually remove all those defaults first so they can fully control the design themselves. Next, we move to the body styling. The body gets a light gray background color. Let's just change this to white. But the more important property is overflow, hidden. This prevents scroll bars from appearing when elements move outside the screen boundaries. And in animated sliders, that's extremely important because slides often shift outside the viewport during transitions. Now let's move into the main container. This is a classic CSS centering technique used in professional layouts. Here's what's happening. Top, 50% moves the container halfway down the page. Left, 50% moves it halfway across the page. But that positions the top left corner at the center. So the transform pulls the element backward by half of its own width and height. And that perfectly centers the container both vertically and horizontally. Press Shift and Tab key to remove or add indentation as per the language styling format. Next, we define the slider dimensions. And then this beautiful shadow. This creates depth and makes the slider feel elevated from the background. Small details like shadows are what give modern UI designs a premium appearance. Now we enter the heart of the slider. Absolute positioning removes the slides from normal document flow. That means the slides can now stack on top of each other and move freely inside the container. Now this next section is where the real magic happens. Remember what nth-child does. It selects elements based on their position inside the parent. So here, CSS targets the first slide and the second slide. Now watch what happens to them. Instead of remaining small preview cards, these two slides expand to fill the entire slider container. This creates the illusion of a full screen active slide. Usually, in sliders like this, the first slide acts as the previous slide layer, and the second slide becomes the currently active slide. This means only show the content inside the second slide. So only the active slide displays. The title, the description, and the button. All other slides keep their content hidden. But even though both slides occupy the same space, only the second slide displays its content. This effectively makes the second slide the active slide that users see, while the first slide sits behind it and helps create smooth transitions. Next, the third, fourth, and fifth slides are positioned progressively farther to the right. These become the preview cards that give users a glimpse of upcoming content. Instead of hiding all remaining slides, the design intentionally leaves a few visible, making the interface feel more interactive and encouraging users to keep exploring. Any slide from the sixth position onward is pushed to the same location and hidden from view. This keeps the layout clean while still keeping those slides ready to appear as the user navigates through the carousel. Now, let's talk about the content section. The content inside each slide is positioned absolutely and vertically centered within the image. By default, the content is hidden, and only the active slide reveals its title, description, and button. The title is designed to stand out with a large font size, uppercase letters, and bold styling. The description provides additional information, while the button serves as a call to action for users who want to learn more. One of the most impressive parts of this project is the animation. Instead of instantly appearing, the content starts invisible and heavily blurred. As the animation plays, the content fades in, moves upward, and becomes perfectly sharp. Even better, the title, description, and button don't appear at the same time. Each element has a slight delay, creating what's known as a staggered animation effect. This makes the transition feel smoother, more professional, and easier for users to follow. Finally, we have the navigation buttons. They're positioned at the bottom of the slider and centered horizontally. When users hover over them, the background color changes, providing visual feedback and making the interface feel more responsive. When you put all this together, you get a modern slider that combines positioning, animations, hover effects, and nth-child selectors to create a polished user experience. And what's really impressive is that most of the layout logic comes from CSS itself, while JavaScript simply changes the order of the slides. Now that we fully understand the CSS structure of this slider, let's connect everything together with JavaScript. Let's start from the top. Let next document.query selector. Let prev document.query selector. Here, JavaScript is selecting the navigation buttons from the page. The next button will move the slider forward, and the prev button will move the slider backward. Now, this line is extremely important. This tells JavaScript, whenever the user clicks the next button, run a function. Inside that function, we first collect all the slider items. This grabs every slide inside the carousel. So JavaScript now has access to slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, slide 4, and every other item. Item 0 represents the first slide in the slider, and appendChild moves that slide to the end of the container. Now let's look at the previous button. Again, JavaScript waits for the user to click. Then it collects all slider items. But now we do the opposite operation. This line takes the last slide. And once again, CSS automatically recalculates all the nth-child positions. So the entire slider updates instantly. The active slide changes, the preview cards shift, and the animation transitions smoothly. In this project, JavaScript controls the order of elements. CSS controls the appearance of elements. And that separation creates cleaner, more scalable code. And honestly, this is one of the best examples of combining JavaScript logic with CSS architecture properly. This approach improves performance, maintainability, scalability, and readability. And this exact principle is used in many professional front-end systems today. So if you truly understand this project, you're not just learning sliders anymore. You're learning how real front-end engineering works.